We're live. ASMR. Let's rock and roll. Here we go, Ralph. Go ahead and throw it up there. Just get me on the camera. I want to talk now. We'll do it live. Hey, how you doing? Go Dogs, everybody. We're ready to talk about college football. Week 5 is here. We're going to rock and roll. We're going to talk about Bryce Coon, Will Mannis, Ralph Leary. Monday night episode of the Crowded Booth. We'll see you here in just a second.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Coon.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Ralph, you get over there, dude. Get away from me. Get away from me. Get away from Will. Get away from Will. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Get away from me.
Oh, my gosh. I'm going to have an epileptic seizure. Let's rock and roll. Jonesy in the chat didn't call last night on the Georgia Tech show. Let's just go ahead and issue an apology. My moves of Micah Parsons allowed the show to get demonetized and took the show off the airwaves, but that's okay. We're repping today. Will's got the new Crowded Booth shirt on that you can go pick up at the link down below. We're going to pray to God that he doesn't ruin it with his perspiration. Ralph, what you rocking with today?
If you want to know what he's talking about.
Yeah, go watch the show. Ralph's not wearing anything, he just told us. Live on air, he's not wearing anything. He's got Team Columbia.
No free.
Here we go. There we
Just
go.
trigger everybody.
Go Dogs.
Well, there goes your fan base.
Go Dogs. No, it's also people are going to freak out. Some rival subscribers just going to freak out. That being said, Winter Park Diamond Dogs, best summer baseball team in 2019. By the way, I wanted to throw it out there. 41-6 they finished that summer. Wild time. Do you know who played for Winter Park the next year? Fun fact for you.
Nope.
Dylan Cruz did. Now a Washington National. All right, let's rock and roll here. Let's talk college football. Big week. And maybe one of the biggest of them all, Ralph, as we're going to talk first off. We got to lead off with this. Like, you can't just not talk about this. And we're going to talk about Texas A&M. I want to lead off with this. Texas A&M in Arkansas. Now, look. I'm going to share this. And if we can get it. Did you guys see that Dan Enos, the offensive coordinator,
this is wild.
got emailed
Yeah, this is wild.
by the student body.
Multiple
emails by the student body. Let's take a look. All right, so first one we got right here. You, whoever this guy is, I just wanted you to know that I'm available to call fourth downs for y'all. Dan Enos, by the way, is Arkansas's offensive coordinator in his first year replacing Kendall Briles. Available to call fourth downs for y'all if y'all need it and y'all don't have to pay me millions. What a disgrace. Enos then responds
immediately.
Immediately. Look at the response time. 350,
On his phone.
350.
By the way, on his phone.
On his phone, yes. What would you call? Which I'm wondering, is this a Saturday? Like, did he respond on Saturday? This is absolutely nuts. I could not get past this.
This has to be today. This had to have been like today or Sunday.
One would think. That is for sure. One would think. All right, so he responds immediately. Then this person responds right back, a QB sneak. That isn't that hard. Now let's go to the next page of emails. With Gap's defense, what a joke. Daniel Enos responded to this child. Then response. Also, once again, remember the original message was sent at 350. He goes back 351, 350.
Dan Enos, confirmed double texter.
Ooh. That's wild.
Confirmed double texter.
You're so innovative, he says. I don't know if you know this, Dan, but a QB sneak with a 250-pound quarterback is hard to stop even if you know it's coming. Next one. Also, but what you've been doing isn't working if you didn't notice. 354. This entire exchange has taken place within a 5-minute span. Thanks, Robinson. You should have been a coach. Absolutely nuts. Maybe you should. It continues. Just wild. I cannot believe this. Also, I got the wife sending me Instagram reels during the middle of a live show. Like, what are we doing here? Casual. Absolute casual.
Let's
Absolute
not
casual.
We are not
react to
going to-
Instagram Reels because we don't
Look.
want this stream to be shut down again.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, we can't do
We're
that.
not gonna. We're not gonna. We're not throwing shade at Hillary. We
Yeah.
will not do that here.
We won't. Maybe you start trying to be innovative and get a first down. If I was a coach, I would have just been effective as you are. You still have time. Apply for some jobs. I'm sure that you will be great. Legendary. You want to know how this kid got the email? Yes, the same email he had at Maryland, but with a UARC EDU address.
Oh my god!
Guys, that's nuts. Get me out of this view screen, please. That's nuts. Absolutely nuts. And once again, shout out. Hillary the meme god. Couldn't even be farther from it. Absolutely hates memes, in fact. Hates anything that's not 9.5 miles. That being said, let's rock and roll. Let's talk. A&M handles business. Bryce Coon, Ralph Larry, Will Manis, thanks so much for tuning in. If you're watching live, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, get the view counts up as well. Share with your friends, share with people you don't even like. If you think this podcast sucks, share with people you don't like so you can just inflict that pain upon them.
Please.
We'll do it. Will, A&M handles business. If I'm a fan of an SEC West team, I'm a little concerned because that defensive front looks really, really good. Now, Arkansas, we knew coming off of a game against LSU where they put up points, they just couldn't quite find it in the end. You felt like Arkansas, they felt better about themselves after losing to LSU than they did BYU, but now 3 straight losses for the Hogs. What does this mean for an A&M team and an Arkansas team, in your opinion?
I think as far as Arkansas is concerned, the season is like teetering on being over. They're not going to do anything in the SEC, which they really weren't expected to. But that's 2 losses for them, 2 losses in conference, and in this one they were really bad offensively. They had 42 rushing yards. And you think of Arkansas with KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders, that they're going to be able to run the ball? Not against Texas A&M. You talked about this front. As an Auburn fan, I'm thankful Auburn doesn't have to see Texas A&M again.
Yeah.
Don't want to have to relive that. Really good front seven, really fast on that front seven. They are a problem. And Max Johnson, I said it last week, I think Max Johnson is better than Connor Wegman. I think he is personally. He had a great game, 17 of 28, 210 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He brings something different to the offense that Wegman did. I think he's more of a downfield passing threat than Wegman. He takes more chances than Wegman does, but he's so accurate with the ball. I mean, he hits receivers deep down the field. A&M's dangerous. They've got 1 loss, but it's not in the SEC. And with the way things shook out Saturday, they're in the driver's seat in the SEC West.
Yeah, I was talking with a couple people about this. It's really, really interesting. It's really interesting to me because I don't know what's going to happen with LSU. We're going to talk about that in a second, and I'll go on my rant about this team, which will be really similar if you watch Georgia Tech's show. I mean, absolutely almost the same thing, except Tech has a worse offense. That being said, I do believe, if I'm not wrong, guys, like A&M and LSU could be a de facto SEC West title game. Like that could happen. And it's not that we necessarily I don't want to say think that it couldn't happen, but I think just altogether, when you look at what A&M brings to the table, like we're starting to see some of that talent up front, especially Shamar. Is it Stewart or is it Shamar Turner? Shamar Turner is his name?
Turner.
Evan Stewart's the
Turner.
receiver. Evan Stewart's the receiver. Shamar Turner was a force in this game, I believe. I mean, I think he had a really, really big game, even if it doesn't show up in the stat sheet. I was reading some things about what he was able to do. Ralph.
He lived in the backfield. 2.5 tackles for loss, half a sack. Yeah.
I mean, just fantastic. Ralph, I want to ask you this. A&M does handle business. Is Sam Pittman on the hot seat? Is Pittman on the hot seat in Arkansas, in your opinion?
No, I don't think so. Look, they're a good team, and they've had KJ Jefferson feels like for 6 years now, and I just think it's time really to move on from this whole situation. I mean, not from Pittman, but I mean Jefferson didn't play very well, honestly. I mean, he played great against LSU. Everyone was talking about he would have been player of the game if they would have won that game, but and we see LSU's defenses this past week, they look terrible. And so is KJ Jefferson really a good quarterback anymore? Going off a great game against a terrible defense, and you play a really good defense, and you look terrible. So, is it time to really just we got to stop dealing with KJ Jefferson. He's big, he's a good runner, but he can't really throw the ball for us. But I wanted to make one comment about A&M. Yes, the offense looked really good, defense looked really good. Anaya Smith had a hell of a game.
Yeah.
4 punt returns for 131 yards and a touchdown. That's a game changing.
SEC Special Teams Player of the Week. I think he earned those.
He had an 82-yard punt return for a touchdown. I mean, that's just he put them in least scoring, almost in the red zone on 2 returns. That's the greatest thing you can ask for out of your special teams. Is give me a chance to win a game, and they did. So
yeah,
I mean, we talk about their defense played great. They did. Offense did a pretty good job. Anaya Smith played a great game.
Yeah,
he also led them in receiving with 71 yards on just 4 catches. I mean, he's a playmaker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what A&M needed. Like, they needed some of these guys to take a step up to elevate their game. Look, I like the Aggies in the sense of I'm not ready to crown them, the best team in the SEC West or in the SEC in general. But I said this last week. I said this, Will. We were talking about this. In order for Arkansas to go over and beat them, to me right now, if you're going to beat A&M, you've got to have a really, really good performance from your quarterback, because that's exactly the recipe that Miami had. They had a guy who is an NFL caliber quarterback in Tyler Van Dyke go out there and just absolutely light them up. Arkansas doesn't have that. Auburn wasn't able to do that a couple of weeks ago. Now, there's still some teams that could do that. A team like LSU that they're going to play at the end of the season. A&M's still going to have some trials ahead of them. I'll say this. I think A&M has positioned themselves well, like you said. Without Wegman, I like Max Johnson. Max Johnson was good at LSU. Like, he wasn't flashy. I mean, I think the problem is Max Johnson was the guy to take over after Joe Burrow. And if there's anything I've learned about LSU fans is that's tough.
Max Johnson actually took over for TJ Finley. So,
Texas State Bobcats. They did beat Baylor to open up the season, so don't hate on them too bad. Finley did have a good year.
I'm not hating on TJ Finley.
But that being
obviously
said,
there was a cancer at Auburn last year.
Yeah, it was. There's a lot of cancerous issues.
One more note on Texas A&M. Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Petrino, you think they're going to throw it around and throw for 400 yards? They didn't. Yeah. They had 210 yards in the air, 204 on the ground. If they're going to be balanced, watch out.
Scary. It's what they really haven't had a great running game. Like, that's one of the reasons they lost to App State last year. They couldn't
really ever. A&M has not really been impressive on the ground since they've joined the SEC.
But they've had good talent back there in the backfield. They've had guys that could run the football. They just didn't do it with any type of consistency.
Had A-Chain, who's
A-Chain was there a few years ago, and but he didn't
not light it up for the Dolphins, by the way.
Yeah, for real.
Jalen Waddle. Probably because he's on my fantasy team.
That's okay. That's okay. Let's roll the next game. Georgia outlast Auburn on the road. Now, listen, if you're an Auburn fan or Georgia fan, you want to hear a more in-depth recap of this game. And like I said earlier, Ralph, you weren't here for it. You were getting that hashtag 175K a day. That being said, if for some reason you haven't watched this football game, we've got the place for you. You can go check out a preview with our good friend Palmer Tums. And then you can come on and you can Palmer Toms. It's not Toms. I'm just messing around. You can then watch the game and you come back for the recap that Will and I did earlier today, kind of talking about this in-depth game. Appreciate you if you would check that out. Georgia outlast Auburn on the road. Will, I know we talked about it, so I'm going to hand it off to Ralph first. Your thoughts on this game? I mean, overall, Auburn's got to like what they were able to do, but third downs killed the Tigers in this game. Just couldn't. I don't know. I'm just glad you kept Will from any self-harm. That's what I'm glad.
I'll say this, though. I think me and Will had a great time watching that game in the first half. I mean, we truly did. It was a fun time. Honestly, watching Will's face, just see Auburn make just big plays on defense, have an interception, forcing fumbles. He was just going nuts. So, happy for him to watch and actually get to watch a decent Auburn team play this week, this past week. So I had a great time watching it. But yeah, I mean, look, Auburn came out and they just said, look, we can play. We can play with the big boys. I mean, look, and we're not. I think I said someone else on their podcast yesterday said it that this is not the same Georgia team that they've had in the last 2 years. They're still a good team. They're not a great team, and it showed on Saturday. There are some things that teams can take advantage of over them and make problems. Like Auburn did a very good job of that. Carson Beck was his first road test. And you can see it was a little shaky at first. He wasn't playing horrible, but he just wasn't doing what he has been doing in the past. And their run game was, Dejon Edwards had a good game, I guess, toward the end. But the first half, dude, I thought Georgia could not run the ball. It felt like they just could not run the ball very well against Auburn. And Auburn's offense, dude, it was a ground attack. Will said to me, he goes, "This is about the 7th straight game without 100 yards passing versus Power 5 opponents." If I'm correct.
That is
Mhm.
correct.
Yeah, so it's if Auburn could throw the ball a little better, I mean this game probably ends in an upset, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. If Auburn could develop a passing game, third downs was abysmal. Will and I, went back and looked at the game. Obviously, we saw the comment there from Gavin, Brock Bowers. They force fed 19, and Will, you were very animated about the fact that Captain America and all of our charcuterie boards are making sure they're making their appearance at the Auburn tailgate as well. I love the fact that Zach comes in here because he thinks he's going to get me off my kilter, but I'm so just well strung at this kind of stuff, and not strung out by any means, but I'm definitely strung on this kind of stuff that I can just keep it rolling. Appreciate you, Zach. That being said, Georgia outlasted Auburn on the road, Will, and they force-fed 19. Like, there's no ifs, ands, buts about it. They were able to do that. It was absolutely fantastic. They were able to stop the run. Georgia just averaged 3.6 yards per carry. Ralph said Carson Beck didn't look shaky. I know you said he just looked cool, calm, and collective. I mean, this is the guy
He
that just
did.
looked comfortable with what he was able to do.
Yeah, I mean, you look at his numbers, and he was honestly great. 23 of 33, 313 yards, 1 touchdown, had that interception early. But I think he's just a guy that he doesn't get too high and he doesn't get too low, and that's why he's a starting quarterback at Georgia. Kirby Smart being a defensive guy, he's going to build a strong defense. He just needs somebody that's going to take care of the ball on offense and keep the ship moving, keep it moving forward, and that's what Carson Beck does. And Carson Beck, he made some incredible throws to Brock Bowers in that second half, especially on that last drive. Bowers had back-to-back one-handed catches that were thrown in the perfect spot. The coverage wasn't bad for Auburn, and one of them, I think it was Donovan Kaufman, was all over him. And Bowers turns around, reaches behind him, and snags it with one hand. I mean, you can't guard 19. Bo Nix has been my Heisman pick all year. I'm not changing from that, but Brock Bowers better be in New York at the Heisman ceremony because I don't know how you stop him. Auburn did all they could. Auburn, and we said it on the show earlier, Auburn just doesn't have the depth, and it really showed on defense. There was no way they could last 4 quarters with Georgia in a physical game, which they knew it was going to be coming in. Georgia starts slow. Everybody knows it. And I thought Auburn did a really, really good job of starting fast. They got the early turnover. They were up 10-0 after the first quarter. Things were looking really good for Auburn, and that start kept Auburn in this game and really made Georgia sweat. But moving forward, I think this game is going to springboard Georgia. It's their first road test. They passed it. They played really well in a really, really tough environment. Jordan-Hare Stadium was rocking like we knew it would. But I really think this gets Georgia going and moving in the right direction. They really just start flexing their muscles the rest of the way.
Yeah, Maxwell with a great comment here. He thinks Georgia loses to their first good ranked team they play. They will welcome Kentucky into Sanford Stadium this weekend, which will be a lot of fun.
I don't disagree with that. I think Georgia very well could lose. They're a beatable team. They're not a dominant team like they have been the last 2 years. Their linebacker core is probably the worst it's been since Kirby Smart has been there. They're going to have to figure some things out, but that secondary is really, really, really good. And Kentucky is a good first test for them.
It's a good first test. They'll dominate, or I'm sorry, they'll welcome a team in there. Ralph's going to take a quick break. That's fine, though. That's absolutely fine. Jonesy said that Bobby Boucher Jr. would dominate Bowers. I have yet to find him down in the swamps down here, so I can't quite find him. But it's interesting. Another interesting thing, dialogue in this game that we didn't touch on in the recap, Will, 4 total penalties in this game for 35 yards. This was a relatively clean game.
It was very interesting.
Well, I think we said the first penalty like in the third quarter, early third quarter, maybe. I love Will's thinking.
No, I want to say that there was. I think Auburn had one in the first half.
Well, here I got you right here. We'll see. Auburn did have one on the opening kickoff of the game.
Oh, that's.
And it was offside.
It was an offside.
Offside. Ralph was still in the car on the way to Will's.
I just pulled up the Will's apartment, I think, when the kickoff happened.
This is crazy. So listen to this. You had one penalty on the opening kickoff, and then the very next play, okay, you had a penalty on Georgia for pass interference. And after that, there was not another penalty to the 14:34 mark in the fourth quarter. So it's very, very interesting. Jonesy alive and well in the chat over there. Just having a good time.
Not true. Not true.
Not true.
I have family who watches this. Not true. My roommate just left.
Not true.
My
Hey,
roommate
let's
just
rock and
left.
roll with the next game here.
Which one?
This is a fun one. Kentucky,
yeah.
Florida.
No, I thought you want to run this one.
I want to go Kentucky, Florida. I got stuff I want to talk about LSU. Kentucky, Florida, guys. Go ahead, Ralph.
I was just going to say, if you want more of that LSU game, you can watch Bryce's recap from the Go 247 Sports one.
That was very, very, very interesting. Jonesy, once again, just having a great time in the chat.
True.
All right, let's rock and roll. Let's talk about this Florida-Kentucky game. Kentucky, guys, they ran for 329.
Okay.
Ray Davis.
When did Mark Stoops realize we don't need to throw the ball anymore? We can just run it here.
Devin Leary was 9 of 20 for 69 yards. Nice. With 1 touchdown. 26
to
to
Ray Davis, by the way.
Will.
Ray Davis scored all the touchdowns.
Kentucky's good. Kentucky's kind of good. And they've been trending like this, though, the past couple of years. Well, the last 2 times they started out 5-0, they finished with 3 losses, though. What has to change, and what did you see in this game that makes you have any confidence that they can improve upon that?
Well, to start, I'm just going to go ahead and put out there, I don't think that they're going to do better than 9-3. But they probably have the best chance this year because they've got a better quarterback. Devin Leary, he's adjusting to this new offense, this new system that Liam Cohen has brought back to Kentucky. You saw Will Levis have a ton of success with it. Leary's got to learn it, and he did a better job in this game. He didn't turn the ball over. I think coming into the game, he led the SEC in interceptions by quarterback. So it was a really rough start, and he still wasn't great, 9 of 20, but they didn't have to because you said it. Ray Davis ran for 280 yards. But Kentucky can run the ball, and that's kind of been their identity forever with Mark Stoops.
Yeah.
They're going to be physical. They're going to run the ball. They're going to have a suffocating defense. That's exactly what they had. I mean, Florida coming into this game had the number 1 rush defense in the SEC, and Kentucky ran for 329 on them, 280 by one guy, Ray Davis. Really, really fun to see. I love old school, physical, running the ball. And Ray Davis in Kentucky put on a clinic against a good front up from Florida. So I like seeing it, and I like seeing Florida lose. It's always fun to watch them lose.
Yeah, completely understandable. Billy Napier loses one on the road after building a lot of momentum after beating Kentucky. He then beat Charlotte, which was a little shaky of a win, Ralph.
Beat Tennessee.
Who did I say?
Kentucky.
Oh, I'm sorry. Going into Kentucky, he was trying to build a lot of momentum. Beat Tennessee, beat Charlotte. Appreciate that, though. Too much of the what is that stuff that I sniff, Ralph?
The peppermint oil.
Peppermint oil. Too much peppermint oil. Too much eucalyptus for this show. Ray Davis, 26 carries, 280 yards. Look, Kentucky scored the first 16 points of the game. Ralph, Florida, what's the deal here? Like, we thought coming into this game that Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne would be able to carry a bulk of the carries and carry this offense. 10 carries for Johnson for 42 yards, Etienne 11 for 29. It just didn't work. And Graham Mertz didn't have a horrible game, but he just really wasn't able to be the big playmaker.
Mertz was really good.
Yeah, I think.
Really I mean, he's good. He didn't have a bad game by any means. I mean, 25 of 30 is a really good game. Right? You are right, Will. Yeah. It's good, but I just don't think he's a dynamic playmaker at the quarterback position. So
no, I think he's just okay. Well, Wilson talk. I think he just he's facilitating this year for Florida. Just fill in. This is a year they don't really have a quarterback right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's just going to do a job. He really hasn't played bad all year, and you're right about that. I saw the thing today where he has taken every bit of blame this year for his team. And after week 1, he say, "This is on me, guys. No one else to take the blame." Week 2, anything they messed up, he takes blame for everything. And then apparently after this week, the team really started kind of surrounding him, saying, "Look, dude, it's not your fault. You can't be Superman out there." And I think Napier, I read it again. Napier really sat him down, and they went through the first 5 games and said, "Look, this is what you've done, and this is what we can do better." Yeah. So Graham Mertz is hopefully going to get better. I don't think Florida's down. I think Florida's got a good team. They're going to get better. It's just they're not putting everything together right now. Like one week they're running the ball very well, next week they can't run the ball very well. Like you got to find what you're doing well right now, and they can't find it out right now. So I think they're a better running team than 30 carries for 69 yards. That's terrible.
Yeah, it's not good, and that's kind of what I thought Florida's MO was going to be. I picked Florida last week. I thought they were going to be able to run the ball in Kentucky, and they just weren't able to. And like you said, I think Kentucky's positioned themselves pretty nicely, in fact, to be able to I don't think anyone is – let me say it like this. I don't think anyone's expecting them to go into Sanford Stadium next weekend. We're going to preview the game on Wednesday and win. But, man, you position yourself to have a nice little shot, and that's what they've had and been able to do. Now, if Devin Leary emerges as a playmaker, that's when they become scary to me. If he can find and rekindle some of that 2021 NC State success, that would be very, very interesting to watch. But we'll have to see if it happens. I don't know. Let's go to Rocky Top. Always be home sweet home to me. That's what they were playing. That's what they were playing a lot of. This is a weird game because this is really starting to feel like becoming a rivalry just between two teams that really, really don't like each other. And I think a lot of it is sparked between what happened last year. Spencer Rattler was quoted in saying that, hey, that was their Super Bowl.
It's a weird comment, in my opinion.
It is a weird comment.
Because after last year, when you're sitting in the locker room smoking a cigar, talking about this is a huge win, and then you're saying, oh, it was their Super Bowl. That's petty. I mean, that's a sore loser who's mad who beat him like a drum last year, and then you get beat by 3 touchdowns this year. I mean, except the way they wanted it more than you did. Like it's a terrible comment, in my opinion.
It's just weird. It's just weird, and unfortunately, Stat Broadcast is not even going to let us look at it. But that's absolutely okay.
Yeah, I'm disappointed.
So I'm not. I don't like Tennessee. I'm not picking them anymore. That being said, Will, when you look at this game, Tennessee, Joe Milton has still not completely filled the shoes of Hendon Hooker. I think we can say that. It's still not a great Tennessee team, but they're running the ball. And they got this kid named Squirrel, who is a pretty good player, and they are able to find some pieces on defense. I think they're going to be able to get by, but, their big ultimate test are Alabama and Georgia this year. Mm-hmm. They lose to Florida. What do you think about the Vols going forward, and what do you think about this game?
Well, I said it last week. This is a revenge game for Tennessee. I think they're going to come out inspired. They really want this game. The game last year left a bad taste in their mouth, and they came out and they showed it. South Carolina got off to a good start as well as 14-10 after the first quarter, and Tennessee was able to weather that storm, calm things down, figure it out, and really flex their muscles because they are top to bottom a better team than South Carolina. This offense, it's balanced. It's the most balanced Josh Heupel offense that I've seen in quite some time. They had 239 passing yards, 238 rushing yards, average 6 yards a carry. When you do that, you're going to have a ton of success. And that's really big for Joe Milton because, like you said, he's not Hendon Hooker. He needs that run game to complement him. Throws a great deep ball. He had 2 picks in this game. They lost the turnover in this game and were penalized more than South Carolina. But they were great on third downs. They held South Carolina to just 2 of 15 on third downs. I don't think Tennessee's really going to make a ton of noise. That Florida loss has really, really hurt them. But, I think they're going to be motivated. They're going to have that chip on their shoulder until they're eliminated. They, like you said, they got Tennessee, or they've got Alabama and Georgia left on their schedule, and Kentucky, which is a big game. That's become a big rivalry as well. They're going to come out. They're going to be inspired. They're going to give those 3 teams their best games. But I don't think they're even a New Year's Six bowl team. Mainly there's too many other SEC teams better than them. But Tennessee, they have the potential to shake up the playoff this year. I think they're talented enough. They get Georgia at home. They can really shake up the East and shake up the playoff if they can take down Georgia at home.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to watch, kind of how their season unfolds. Milton, 2 interceptions, like talked about, just wasn't – it's not last year, and that's fine. Like, that's completely okay. Hendon Hooker was really, really good in this offense. Ralph, you can give your thoughts on Tennessee, but I did want to throw this to you about Spencer Rattler. We said Rattler was going to have to be on, and that just kind of feels like if South Carolina is going to win, and we've shown when they have won, he has lived up to what his high school potential was. When he's not on, they really struggle. They lost a lot of weapons. We talked about that. The both lines of scrimmage are not great. Rattler 24-35, 169 yards. Ralph, that's just it's not going to cut it, especially in a road environment like Neyland Stadium could be.
Well, I'm gonna make one comment about Tennessee, and it's just kind of going off what Will said. Play inspired for the rest of the year. You do lose Brew McCoy for the rest of the year. You lost him for the rest of the season, and that's their number one weapon on offense, in my opinion. Besides Squirrel White, he's a talented receiver. Don't get me wrong. But Brew McCoy is their deep threat. They're a big man, and they lost him for the rest of the year. So that hurts their offense, tremendously. We'll see who steps up for Tennessee. But going at Spencer Rattler, man, he's just gotta play better. You're too good of a quarterback, and with a program like this, you can't play this bad. I mean, you're averaging almost under 5 yards a pass. You're not winning games against Tennessee like that. I mean, it's not pretty. It's just not. I mean, when you came out of high school as the number one player, committed to Oklahoma, you were supposed to be the backup for Jalen Hurts and finish what he started at Oklahoma, and you couldn't even do that. Lost a job to Caleb Williams. Get mad, you go to South Carolina, and you had a great year last year. You beat Tennessee last year to end the season, win a big bowl game, and now you're okay. We're last year going to come back, and we're gonna do more, and you haven't done anything. You lost you were up 11 to Georgia at halftime, and you blew it. So it's just this year has just been really ugly for them. So
yeah, it has, and we're gonna take a quick break before we go into the next game. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So Ralph, go ahead and run it.
Let me just say, this is for Austin Biley. I hope he's still in the chat watching.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that Chaz Nimrod steps up for Tennessee in the passing game.
Okay.
Chaz Nimrod. Remember that name.
We're going to get when they had.
Your soap is ugh, and your body wash is a synthetic detergent. But you're not a dish. You're a man. Switch to Dr. Squatch Natural Soap for Men. For men who build things. Open pickle jars on the first try. Slay dragons. And let their daughters braid their hair. Men who like to feel good and smell titillating. Dr. Squatch takes you places you never thought you'd go. Naked.
Chris Collinsworth just coming into the show. We appreciate it. Hey, let's talk about this last game real quick, and then we'll get out of here for the night.
Do you want to start it off, or do you want to start it off?
I want to be the only one to really talk about this game because I don't talk about a lot of the games, and then I want you guys to talk about this. Ole Miss wins in a shootout. If you follow me over on the Instagram, you saw what was an absolute mayhem after the game. And let's get it out of the way. If you're not an Ole Miss or an LSU fan, you probably enjoyed watching this game because it was one of those that was just it was just nuts, absolutely nuts. Being on the field, trying not to get trampled. I also was standing next to the kid as he climbs up the field goal post. It was just absolutely nuts.
Hey, that hot and heavy makeout sesh with the field goal post.
That is very, very, very true. It was nuts. This is what it comes down to. I have said these stats, okay? I'm still just tweaking from last night, by the way. I've said these stats to like 17 different people. Almost said them to Brian Kelly today. He wouldn't have liked it. Ole Miss, 9 of 16 on third downs. 56.3% they converted. Now, I used this as a stat last week. When LSU gives up over 40%, they tend to lose. When Ole Miss gets 44% or more, they are 13-1 in their last 14 games coming into this LSU game. The average third down distance to go in this game was 7.7 yards, essentially 8 yards. In third and long situations, which is 9 yards or more, Ole Miss was 4 of 7. The average yards gained on third down, 11 yards. I'm not going to give out my phone number, but I will tell you this much right now. The LSU defense gave up my area code, 706 yards. DBU does not exist anymore. It is not. The moniker that you are this group that produces a bunch of guys that might not be the most talented, but man, we develop them. That's gone. Corey Raymond's in Florida. He's no longer in Baton Rouge. the idea that you can play zone coverage or do what you want, and man, you can't do it. LSU is not good at defense. You can paint this however you want. You can paint it as, oh, it's year 2, whatever. They're not good, and they were pretty good last year. Now, they're extremely young. This is the sad part, though. Offensively, you have a top 6 offense in the country. You have 2 receivers in the top 10 in yards, 2 also in top 7 in touchdowns, receptions. Jaden Daniels is a bona fide Heisman candidate quarterback at this point, but he's not going to get the recognition because the defense is that bad. Logan Diggs is a bona fide SEC running back. He had 19 carries, 101 yards. I mentioned the receivers. Brian Thomas Jr., 8 catches, 124 yards, 3 touchdowns. Neighbors, no touchdowns, but he did have 8 catches and 102 yards. The tight end, Mason Taylor, solid day, 5 catches, 61 yards. That being said, you were 5 for 5 in red zone attempts. I want to go down this. The offensive cumulative stats. Net total yards for LSU, 637. Rushing yards, 223. You averaged 6 yards per rush. You had 414 passing yards, a 71% completion percentage. You were completing these at 15.3 per completion. If I just showed you that side of the box score, you would say, you know what? Not only did LSU win this football game, they also that's a national championship team. I don't care what the defense does. And then you go over to your friend and you show the other side of the box score, and what do you have? You have the most ungodly numbers you have ever seen, and something that's not even fathomable. And it's the sense that this Ole Miss team was able to get this much yardage. Jackson Dart had his warrior moment. Lane Kiffin might have just gotten his signature win at Ole Miss in this, being able to do this. That being said, LSU's offense, and guys, you can bring yourselves back in, LSU's offense is way, way too good to have to suffer through this defense this season. It's unexplainable. You can't even, and I'm not an LSU fan. I just cover the team. The offense is overshadowed because of what happened in this game, and that's a shame. It's a shame that the offense is overshadowed. It's also, when you look at this, some fans are trying to interact with me on our message boards over Go 24/7 about, well, the offense didn't come up in the clutch moments. We shouldn't be talking about that. We shouldn't be talking about the fact that Chris Hilton could have caught that ball at the end of the game. We shouldn't be talking about that there were back-to-back false start penalties, because you put up 49 points and 637 yards. That's why. Because you don't lose games like that. And I even say this. I won't say it on a Go 24/7 show because we got more LSU viewers there. We need to ease into how I talk to people. The Tech fans know. You don't get paid $10 million as a head coach and lose games like this. You don't. You absolutely don't. So, they bring in, I don't know if you guys saw this, they brought in an 82-year-old to help assist the defensive line. I don't know if you guys saw this. Pete, whatever the guy's name is, Pete Watkins. I don't know. Ralph, find the guy's name. LSU legend, defensive line coach. I asked the question today, and you know what? We went off the rails last night. Let's do this. You guys talk about what your thoughts on, and I want to show you my question to Brian Kelly and
Pete Jenkins.
Pete Jenkins. Yeah, Pete Wheeler Jenkins. Yeah, Pete Jenkins off of Backyard Baseball. We'll take it away. I'm going to try to find this.
This defense is abysmal. As Ralph and Bryce are fighting over the screen. Oh, God, Pete.
That's Pete Jenkins right there. That's the new defensive line coach.
He knows more ball than anybody.
Yeah, certified ball knower. He tuned in, listened to Bryce, spit knowledge and facts. I'm going to echo you. Ole Miss had no business winning this game. But based on LSU's offense, Ole Miss was penalized 11 times for 121 yards. Nobody wins games when you're penalized 11 times for 121 yards. But what Ole Miss did was they dominated on the ground, 317 rushing yards. I've been saying it for weeks. You got to get Ulysses Bentley involved in the running game. 9 carries, 90 yards, and a touchdown. That dude's legit. Quinshon Judkins finally broke out. I think he's finally healthy. 33 carries, 177 yards. Yeah. And Dart added 50 yards. LSU, we thought coming in that their front seven was a strength. I mean, Harold Perkins and Mason Smith anchoring that front seven. You cannot let a team run for 317 yards when you got 2 guys that are probably going to be first-round picks in April. It's just inexcusable.
It is. It is. Ref, I want to get your thoughts, but I also want to show this right here. So let's get this is my question to Brian Kelly today. Now, look, I know that we make fun of certain reporters for saying certain things. I will say didn't let me get the whole question out, but we'll just listen. Tell me if you got the audio,
Are we
Ralph.
allowed to watch this?
Yeah, sure. You've had so many years of experience. Is there anything that you can draw from or pull from? Not that there's a recipe, but to be able to kind of turn this around. I mean, is this something that
Heck
it
yes.
just takes time, or is it more of just getting these guys?
I
to
don't
understand
have
it?
time. Do I look like I've got time? I didn't come down here
I also responded out loud, no.
because I got time. I came down here to be successful with the LSU football program. So no, we don't have time. That's why we did what we did in the transfer portal, or I would have took all freshmen last year. So there is some management of this, but we'll get them better. We'll get these guys playing better. They want to play better. They've got pride. These guys will respond. They'll bounce back. We lost, I think, 40-something to 14 to Tennessee. I think they were ready to burn the city down. And we came back the next week and beat Florida on the road. So we don't need to all jump off the buildings yet.
Okay, so
That right there is why I can't stand Brian Kelly.
this is what I'll say. I respect the fact that he's not going to throw the players under the bus. Like, I get that. You can't do that. And you should never do that as a head coach. Publicly, privately behind closed doors is a completely different concept and thing. You have real man-to-man conversations. In the media, you don't say that. What he's saying to me, and he went on to say this, someone asked him, did you see the secondary play? Like, is there different combinations? And he goes, we saw the same thing. He's alluding to the fact he's not going to come and say they're not good. They do not have the guys, SEC caliber guys, to be able to compete with a group at Ole Miss. And I want to give Ole Miss credit. They've got a good team. Like, it's a really, really good team. They've probably got the best. They've probably got the best group of receivers they've had with Lane Kiffin. I know that they've had some good players, but when you look at all together what they've been able to have, like on the same team, all clicking, all healthy at the same time, it might be. Jonathan Mingo was a great receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Like, fantastic.
Elijah
Moore, like, they had good players, but when you talk about all the weapons and a quarterback that's really hitting on all cylinders and the running game, this is the thing. It's not the fact that you lost this game. It's the fact in the way you did it. You just can't put up 49 points. So, Ralph, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, you and I talked about this game yesterday, before and after your podcast with it. I'm just going to hit on the defense a little bit, and I know you really went off on the defense. There's 3 or 4 plays that we watched in that fourth quarter that Harold Perkins is not even lined up. He's just roaming around behind the defensive line, just okay, I'm going to make a play here, and then you're 2 or 3 seconds behind the play as Ole Miss is going downfield. I mean, it's just like you're not even set up for anything. It was horrible watching that. It's bad. You're one of the best. You were the preseason defensive player of the year for the SEC, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
You should not be roaming around before the play starts, like you don't know where you're going. It just seemed like they weren't ready to win. They thought they were going to get all of it. They thought they were going to get the bad part of Ole Miss. No, you get a fired up Ole Miss team who whooped you. I mean, honestly, it was a 1-score game. It doesn't matter because they shouldn't even been that close. Now look, I know Ole Miss played a great game. I'm not knocking that. Ole Miss did a great job. They say they did exactly what I wanted to do last week. Learn, get the run game going. Get Quinshawn Judkins going. You finally got that going. And look what happens when you have that. I think they would have beaten Alabama if Judkins could have gotten going that game. He wasn't banged up.
That's not far fetched. Yeah,
this is a good team with a great rest of the season ahead of them. They got A&M still left to play. They got to play Auburn. The Auburn and Ole Miss game is always weird. It's just the reason it's always weird.
And it's in Jordan-Hare, man, and that's going to be nuts. Like Will, you mentioned earlier on the show, it's going to be crazy.
That's going to be such a good game.
So it's not far-fetched, like you said, that Ole Miss is not a bad team. They're not. I know people say, well, Lane Kiffin's he kind of goes too far and tries to make these big plays happen. He's just doing what he's always done. This is not a abnormal LSU or Lane Kiffin ran team. This is a very, very good ran team, honestly.
Yeah. And look, they're not going to have an elite defense. They never have. But they showed against Alabama they can stop people. I do think that LSU's offense is just that good. Like I texted you guys. I think Jaden Daniels is the best quarterback in the SEC. There's a case for the numbers he's been able to put up that he could be the best quarterback in the country when you start to kind of look at some of the things and the competition level. I mean, I don't know. Caleb Williams is really, really good. I'm not taking anything away from who hasn't necessarily played. I had a guy that covers the LSU beat. He said if you switch these two teams in a USC and LSU's undefeated, and they might be number 2 in the country just because of the schedules. And we talked about a lot about that. Let's get to this question right here, Ralph, before we get out of the show. Stacy, Kevin Baker, appreciate you tuning in.
Gotcha.
Let's round it out right here. Would you agree, and we'll ask all three of us, that the SEC is not looking good as a whole this year? Will, I think that we all kind of feel the same way on this, but I'll let you start with this, and then we'll roll through it as we get ready to end tonight's show.
I do not agree with that. I think the SEC is just as good. There's just not an elite team, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Transfer portal probably being the biggest one. But this happens every year in the SEC. The top team kind of eases into the season. We've seen Alabama do it year after year. We've seen Georgia do it year after year. They just kind of ease their way in. Texas A&M's doing it this year. Coming out of Saturday, they're my pick in the SEC West. They've kind of got – I wanted to mention earlier kind of a de facto SEC West championship game this week against Alabama. Crazy to say in week 6, but we might be looking at that. I think the SEC is just as competitive as it's always been. I think it could compete with any conference. I think the other conferences are top heavy like usual. The Big 12 with Texas at the top, they're not great. I mean, they beat up on each other too below Texas. The Pac-12 is top heavy. I think they've got 2 really good teams in USC and Oregon that can do a lot. The Big 10 with 3 teams, but if you put them on a neutral field with Georgia, you put I want to see Kentucky and Penn State play on a neutral field. I think that would be a very competitive game. The way Kentucky runs the ball and the way they play defense, I think Kentucky could come away with that win. When you have a debate like this, you got to think about putting these teams on a neutral field. Anywhere you want, neutral field. Ohio State, I don't know that they beat the top teams in the SEC because their quarterback play has been lacking. Notre Dame, I don't think they take down the top SEC team.
Yeah,
I think the SEC is just as good. There's just not that dominant elite team at the top like we're used to seeing.
That's a very good point. I think I'm gonna let Ralph talk. Go ahead, Ralph.
I had just one thing. In this weekend, this upcoming weekend, you have 2, should be 3 ranked SEC matchups this weekend. LSU, Missouri, Kentucky, Georgia, and it should be Alabama A&M. That should be a ranked game. A&M's not ranked for some reason because Fresno State's 5-0, and they think they're better. So the rankings are terrible. But the SEC is just doing what I thought was going to happen. Year after year, they just beat up on each other. It's just a constant. We're playing smash mouth football. Some teams are getting better. Some teams are just staying where they are. And that's what happens. When Alabama dominates for so long and Georgia starts to dominate, everyone else wants to be there and they want to play better. I'm loving this. Honestly, this is good. This is good for the sport. We don't want to see the same teams year after year. We want to see close games. We want to see, someone different come out of the SEC. I wouldn't mind seeing a Kentucky come out of the SEC East this year. Why not? I mean, it's better than watching Georgia play. Whoever comes out of the West who's just broken in half because they've been beaten up all year.
Mm-hmm.
This is like last year. I mean, the LSU had a great team last year, but man, they were on the last leg of the team because they were just beat up all year.
Literally, so, Jaden Daniels was on one leg in that SEC title game.
Exactly. So look, this is a conference that you come into this conference and get ready because it's not weak. I don't think it's weak. I think it's just they're just very strong on all sides this year.
I think that I like Will's comment about the transfer portal, and I wanted to expound upon that because I think that we're seeing other brands, other programs close the gap in the sense of NIL, in the sense of transfer portal, because let's take the three big brands that college football brands that have been big brands, but they just haven't necessarily played up to that standard in the past decade. And we mentioned this after week 1: Florida State, Miami, and Texas. It's good for the sport. It's good for the sport that all three of those schools beat what was viewed as the top SEC teams in their respective, in the conference. Miami beat A&M, which is a team that's really, really talented. Regardless of the jokes about A&M, it's a super talented team, like what they have on the field and on the roster on paper. Florida State beats LSU, which a lot of people, including myself, has the SEC preseason West champion. And then obviously Texas beats a team in Alabama. So that's the top three teams in the division in the SEC West that went down in non-conference play. So is the SEC down? Look, we're sitting here after 5 weeks where you feel like you have a pretty good gauge of what the season's going on. I don't know if I would say it's down. I do agree they're starting to beat up on one another. I think that we're seeing a lot of good coaching out of the mid-tier SEC teams that is elevating the level of play, like a Hugh Freeze-led Auburn team. Auburn doesn't have the guys, the Jimmies and Joes, to compete 60 minutes with Alabama, LSU, Georgia. But they're going to, one, if they get those games at home, and two, because they've got an innovative, effective play caller. You look at other teams like Kentucky. Mark Stoops is going to get a lot out of his Kentucky teams year in and year out when they don't have all the big guys. But you know what? They're recruiting, their analysts, they evaluated really well, and they pulled guys from the portal that makes sense.
They portaled really, really well.
So well. So I think when you look at this, I love what you said, Will, about compared to the rest of the country, I don't think there's a dominant team in college football. Now, we're going to do this. We should have done it tonight. We didn't do it tonight. Florida State, for me, is still the number one team in the country. I do think that Florida State's the best, most complete team in the country when it comes to what they've done in their body of work and being able to survive. Is the SEC down? This the same conversation. I'll say this. Same conversation that we thought last year when Georgia went on the road to Missouri and struggled. And then what did Georgia do? Look like nobody could compete with them the rest of the season. And nobody really did, if we're honest with ourselves.
I think history is going to repeat itself.
Yeah, and we'll
coming out of Auburn.
Yeah.
With that win, come from behind win, they're gonna roll the rest of the way. And this week against Kentucky, they have a great reason to, because there's a lot of people questioning them.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Also, too, this is why all the jokes about schedules, you wait till the season. You wait till the week of, because now Georgia's lining up where you're going to have to play a ranked Missouri team, most likely, a ranked Kentucky team, a really potentially ranked Ole Miss team that's going to be fighting for their SEC title hopes, lives in that as well. Let's get to Maxwell, but great question. I absolutely love that question. That's the Facebook page. That was a really, really good one. We'll round it out with this one. We're just trying to get in under that hour mark. How do y'all think OU and Texas fare in the SEC start next year? Maxwell, once again, fantastic question. Red River Shootout is this weekend. I cannot wait, guys, to be home and be able to watch this one. It's going to be a lot of fun. Will, we'll start with you again. Man, OU, Texas, they're putting on some strong campaigns, and I'll say this, the Big 12 does not want to have to award one of those teams a trophy or have them play each other at the end of the year for the Big 12 title game. But how do you think of their faring?
I think Texas is going to really hit the ground running in the SEC. You look at their team now, how strong they are, and the recruiting class, they're in the top 5, or they're going to be there in December and February when it's all over. I think Texas has the depth. Sarkisian learned how to recruit an elite roster at Alabama, and he's doing that at Texas. Oklahoma, I think, may struggle year one, and you can put some homerism on that because they have to go to Auburn their first year in the SEC.
To LSU.
And to LSU. So their schedule is tough in year one. But Venables it was going to be a slow build for Brent Venables. I think that's obvious. You're going from an elite offensive guy and Lincoln Riley to the other end of the spectrum with an elite defensive guy. He's going to have to turn over that defensive side of the ball. Oklahoma, it may take them a few years to get going and to really push in the SEC, but I like Texas's chances next year, hitting the ground running and really making some noise.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'll go and then I'll throw it to you, Ralph, to round it out. I think that overall, Texas, we mentioned this, I put Texas in my playoff, and man, that's looking pretty good right now in the sense of what they're able to do. They have the casual people don't understand this. They've really built well on the line of scrimmage, and they've added even more explosive weapons. I mean, it kind of goes back to Kevin's question earlier. I mean, a lot of these teams that are really good that beat SEC teams added high-impact players from SEC teams in this past offseason to the portal. A.D. Mitchell being one of the guys. Jamil Burrows went to Miami. So all of that included. But going into this, I do agree with you, Will. I think that Texas has a really, really good shot, if they even make the playoff this year, to start off in the Tier 1 realm. Like in the Tier 1 realm when we talk about what it means to be competitive. Roster, coaching, support. And that means in NIL, financial. They've got all three of those checked. It's just results. And if they get the results this year, I really like it. I think Oklahoma has a good chance to start in that Tier 2 to Tier 3 range, where we kind of talk about, maybe they're on the same level as an Auburn or an LSU or an A&M, where the potential is there for them to be a Tier 1 team. But like you said, it's still early on in the Venables era. I do like what Venables has done this year. I think that game's going to be really, really fun to watch on Saturday. Ralph, your thoughts on this?
Well, I was watching a little bit of their game this past weekend. I kind of thought it was a trap game for them. Iowa State, always giving them trouble in the past,
The fighting Matt Campbell's.
Yeah, Matt Campbell, who should have left a long time ago.
Oh, my gosh, yes. Yes.
Yeah, but, I mean, you go back to the past, like in any time they've ever played in a big game, Iowa State's always come on top. So I was like, this is a game that Venables he's got to win. You got to win good. And they had a great win. They won 50-20. They look good. This weekend's going to be a big test. Obviously, you got a very talented and very strong Texas team. I think Texas wins. Obviously, I think that's just a very easy win for them. We'll talk about Wednesday probably, I'm sure. But, yeah, I mean, Texas going in next year my question is, who's going to be their quarterback? Arch Man's everyone thinks Arch is the next quarterback. He's third on the depth chart right now. Yeah. So we'll see who they go with next year. That's a big question because Quinn Ewers has been electric this year. I think he's been great. Yeah. Their defense is great. They're going to be, like I said, they're a Tier 1 team next year. They should be and they will be. Oklahoma though they're recruiting well. They got a good recruiting class. They're getting better. I think keeping Dylan Gabriel for one more year was really smart by them, just to let him finish off his career. You get 1 year under Dylan Gabriel as a backup. You learn from him. He's a very talented quarterback who's been in the league for a long time. He's been playing since 2019. I didn't realize that. Yeah. It's a good learning experience. He's a good player. I mean, I'm serious. This is the offense that's lighting up the scoreboards, though. They truly are. If they can keep that going into the SEC and just find out a defensive scheme next year, and just a solid defense and get some players back there, they can win. They can win games.
Yeah, Jackson Arnold's going to be really, really fun to watch when he gets the chance. They also have the number 7 overall class in the country, including the number 10 overall player, David Stone, coming in. So it's about that recruiting. It's about that support. I think that they've shown that they were able to do that. And, man, great questions to kind of round out the show. Thanks to Stacy, Kevin, and Maxwell as well. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. It's going to be very, very interesting to watch how the rest of the week goes about. And, Ralph, we'll just obviously Ole Miss beating LSU. We got to talk about that again. I will say this as we round it out. Ole Miss capacity crowd, largest attendance and crowd in Ole Miss history, and they were rocking. Got to honor the 03 team with Eli Manning. And, there's old LSU defensive line coach down there, Pete Jenkins, hacking away on Will's microphone. That's okay, though, as well. Tiger blood in the water at the Grove. Rachel, shout out. The Grove lives up. Ole Miss is a special place, an absolutely special place.
I was going to say now, I'm still disappointed in her. Leaves the game before it ends. Just disappointing. It truly is.
Pour one out. Pour one out. All right, we're going to rack it up. We're going to wrap it up. Will Mannis, Bryce Coon's my name. He's Ralph O'Leary. And, man, we appreciate you for tuning in. Make sure to stay subscribed to the channel. Follow the Facebook page if you're watching over there. We're going to be live again Wednesday night as we preview Week 6's slate. It's a fun one, regionally and nationally as well. And then, once again, Georgia Tech fans, we're going to be back on Thursday previewing this Miami game. Captured some cool intel today as well that I think is going to be something to go into.
We need our research department to figure out our best bets record for.
Yes, Dr. Bob nowhere in the building tonight, so he's got one strike against him. But we will listen. We're going to catch you next time. Ralph Leary, Will Mannis, my name is Bryce Coon. See you next time here on the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Coon.